Speaking of courts, we've got less than 3 weeks before the election, or maybe it's 3 weeks to the 3 weeks of time. Yeah. Do we ever get an answer about court packing? I mean, I just want to know. Can we get? They're never going to get this answer, huh? They're not going to tell us. They will not address the Democrats, Biden, Harris. They will not tell the American people what their plan is on this incredibly important issue. They're just not going to tell us. No interest in telling us. That's how they're going to play this. Well, we all know why, right? We all understand what the reasoning is behind this. If the American people found out that, and when I say the American people, remember, we always have to break this down into segments. There are crazy lib Democrats who, if Biden was walking around dressed like Joseph Stalin, grew a funky mustache, and said that he wanted to go full commie, there are Democrats who a lot of them would still vote for him, anything but Trump. And I'm being serious. A lot of Democrats would still vote for Joe Biden, even they'd say, yeah, whatever, Kamala will take over and we'll push him aside. So we're not in a normal political time here. But for those Americans who are still watching, observing, and trying to make their decision about which way they'd go here, it is not confidence inspiring that Democrats who have spent 4 years complaining about how Trump is destroying our sacred institutions would be willing to upend the institution of the Supreme Court in this way, right? For obvious political reasons. That's why I think it's so interesting that they're now just trying to act like it doesn't matter, or we don't have a right to know. I mean, Biden said, what was it, over the weekend, when asked about this by a reporter, he said they simply do not have a right to know. The American people don't have a right to know, which is pretty stunning when you think about it, but that's where we are. Don Lemon brought this up with Chris Cuomo. Bro Cuomo, do we even lift Don? Actually, Don probably spent some time in the gym. But here's how this exchange went, because remember, Don Lemon will say the quiet part out loud a lot. Play 3.
I'm not surprised by any of it. I'm just sick of it. But listen, why are you like pushing him about court packing? Because you're doing the Republicans' work.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
it's a legitimate question.
It's not. Look, it's not a legitimate question in that.
What?
During the debate, the vice president raised the question. The moderator didn't raise the question. Plus, it is this is something that this is a hypothetical, whether or not Joe Biden has said twice, at least on tape that I've seen, how he feels about court packing. And I think it's a distraction from the Republicans.
And why doesn't he answer it?
Because he doesn't have to, just because he doesn't have to answer it.
Well, he doesn't have to answer it, but you don't think it's going to affect people's trust quotient?
No, because people aren't worried about that. People are concerned about, if you want to know specifically about the court, people are concerned about the Republicans switching and being hypocrites on saying this is an election year. That's what people are concerned about.
Isn't that amazing? I hope you really were digging deep in there and listening to what was being said. Don Lemon, it's just all verbal nonsense. It's just garbage coming out of that guy. So what is he even talking? It's not a legitimate question because the thing and the blah-bitty. What? There was never really even an answer there. It's not legitimate because the vice president and the thing and the place and the who's and the what's and the what? Nonsense. Total nonsense. But they don't have an argument, folks. But they're so desperate. The only thing he said there that was truthful, though, was you're doing the Republicans' work for them. That's right. Getting the truth on that question would be helpful to Republicans. And so the Democrat media, of which Cuomo and Lemon are a part, the Democrat media makes a choice. The truth is less important than the desired outcome. It's almost like their judicial philosophy, right? What is actually legal is irrelevant. What we want to be legal is all that matters. Journalists are supposed to be about getting to the truth, but here journalists are telling you that they don't want to help Republicans, even if that means that they will be complicit in the suppression of truth about a presidential candidate like Joe Biden. And then you have, remember Tim Kaine was Hillary Clinton's running mate? I mean, what a, he's like a guy that you've seen in a few 80s movies and never knew his name. And you're like, who's that actor that was kind of in the thing? And you saw him, and that's Tim Kaine as vice president. You're like, what? Who is this guy again? What's he doing? But he's also making the same former VP candidate. Tim Kaine also making the same claim here that, Biden Biden shouldn't have to answer the court packing question because reasons. Play 2.
Well, I haven't asked him, but I have a pretty good idea, Bill, because it's not his business. The Constitution gives no power to the president or vice president to pack the court. I heard Senator Ernst say, Joe needs to say he won't pack the court. It's not a presidential responsibility. Congress, according to Article 1 of the Constitution, sets the composition. So that's why it's not even part of the campaign plan.
But also, there's veto power, so he could block legislation, right? So we're going to pretend now that the leader of a party, whether it's the Democrat or the Republican, should not speak to the priorities of that party and what it's trying to accomplish and what the legislative branch would do. Notice the artificial separation. That's a Congress thing. Okay, well, you're the president. Are you going to support it? Does the president? I mean, we call it Obamacare. You notice that? We don't call it Pelosi care, but health care is actually a province, from a legislative perspective, of the Congress, right? But we call it Obamacare, not Pelosi care, because Obama was out there selling it and pushing for it and worked with the Democrats to ram through that nightmare of a bill. But now they create this artificial distinction where, it's not the president's job to pack the court, so he doesn't have to say whether he thinks it's a good idea or not. It's the Congress's only. It's not relevant. Notice they're willing to make pathetic arguments. These are pathetic arguments. These are laughable, flimsy arguments that people in prominent positions who are very wealthy and have influence among Democrats, among the whole country, unfortunately, will say with a straight face because they're desperate and they want what they want and they're not able to make a principled, reasoned argument for what it is that they're trying to get out of all of this. So just take note of that. What's going to happen if on election night, I've really been thinking about this. What's going to happen if on election night there's not a winner declared? Now, I would go so far as to say that I think this is likely. I would go so far as to say that I believe this is what's going to happen. Now, it's a prediction. I could be wrong. But I understand Americans usually expect November 3rd to be the date that will determine the outcome of the presidential contest. But it might not be that simple this time because there are realistic scenarios, perhaps even likely ones, as I say. I think it is likely, where we do not know who's going to be president for the next 4 years after Election Day. There are going to be razor-thin vote margins, my friends, in about a half a dozen swing states. When I say razor-thin, 1% of the electorate. Overall, nationally, 2% of the electorate overall nationally is going to determine this whole thing. And there are already changes in the processes that have been in place for a long time because of the COVID pandemic that could add to the chaos. So mail-in ballots are the most likely reason for a delayed election night result. You already have 5 states with mail-in only elections: Colorado, Hawaii, Washington, Oregon, and Utah. But there are recent additions to that list because of COVID-19 fears. New Jersey and California are going all mail-in because people are so terrified of COVID. That's right, terrified to wait mostly outside, socially distanced in a line. This is where we are. But there are also a lot of states that, as we know, allow absentee ballots, which uses the mail. And so Democrats are playing this whole game where they're acting like mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, it's all the same. No, universal mail-in ballots means that everybody on the voter registration rolls gets sent a live ballot. You can just fill it out, sign it, send it in the mail. And we all know that there are shockingly outdated voter registration rolls in many, many states. We're talking about millions of improper ballots going out if this happens enough nationwide. So that's the concern about. There's a concern about fraud, and there's also a concern about delay. All right? Delay. The mail, as we know, is not perfect. The mail could end up slowing things down, and there may well be from the 4th of November until I think it's December 12th. That's how long it can take for the state to even certify their results. And given all these mail-in ballots that some states are even going to count if they're postmarked after the election, you have a lot of ballots out there that could be filled out, harvested, filled out, sent in. No one's ever going to know. Okay, no one's ever going to know the difference. They're not going to look into this. It's very hard to prove. And you're also going to have a very high stress put on the Postal Service to get all this stuff done at this time, millions more ballots than ever before. So this is what led to the midsummer news cycle. You remember this, full of all those conspiracy theories that Trump was defunding the post office, and there were all these hysterical social media posts shared all over the internet claiming that the post office boxes were being intentionally moved and mail sorting machines destroyed, all as a part of some Trumpian scheme, they alleged, to defund and disable the mail and prevent mail-in ballots from arriving. So look, even though that post office conspiracy furor has died down for now, there are going to be issues because of the unprecedented amount of voters entrusting their ballots to a mailman or a mailbox. I guess the mailman takes it out of the mailbox. You've got over 1 million mail-in votes likely to be disqualified and discarded, according to analysis that's out there from a bunch of places, including USA Today. Because all they have to do is have a missing signature and it doesn't count. How many people do you think, how many times have you sent in a check where you forgot to sign it? That's happened to me. Happens all the time, right? People forget, they fill it out and they forget to sign it. And that means the ballots will be rejected. Just this year, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania rejected about 60,000 primary ballots between the three of them. Those are only 3 states. Those are battleground states, folks. That's in the general. So you have the delayed ballot issue. You have discarded ballots. You have possible fraud. And then you have different states with different deadlines about when they can receive absentee ballots and overseas ballots. So if the COVID-19 pandemic pushes mail-in voting to record numbers, this could be stressing the system to a breaking point. And all of this is happening, as we know, during an election that's the most contentious in living memory. Democrats are still clinging to this belief that Trump didn't really win the 2016 election in a fair and square. And they're already spreading panic that Trump will refuse to step down if he loses. We've even heard that insanity during debates from the moderator. What would you do if President Trump, Vice President Pence, what would you do if Trump didn't step down? It's madness. Without a concession from Democrats on election night, which I think is a realistic scenario, I think that's the probable scenario, the various vote churning and litigation machines of both sides will kick into overdrive. Some states have all the way up until December 12th to certify their state election results. That means there could be weeks of gamesmanship and court battles over discarded ballots, extending deadlines, and other inevitable voting issues. The national focus could also quickly turn to the prospect of a contingent election. That's right. That's a real thing, folks. Could occur if neither side ends up winning outright the Electoral College. Now, I don't think this will happen, but people will be talking about it. A contingent election has occurred 3 times in the past, but it's been a long time. 1801, 1825, and 1837. Now, there is a process in place for this scenario. It's been successful in keeping presidential succession going in the past when it had to be used. Essentially, the presidential election process in a contingent election is handed over to the House of Representatives. Then it all comes down to how many individual states a candidate wins. The Senate, in turn, picks the vice president, who, as we know, is president of the Senate. So that kind of makes sense. But these are very volatile times, my friends. And if we don't have a winner on election night, and I don't think we will, that doesn't mean I don't think Trump's going to win the election. I just don't think we're going to have a winner on election night because Democrats are going to refuse to concede based on mail-in ballots that who knows how many are really out there. But the allegations of cheating, tyranny, a stolen election, they're going to be screamed on TV screens, newspapers, websites, all across the country. And you're going to have vast hordes of angry voters who are going to take to the streets in protest, all from what we've seen this summer from Biden and the Biden voters. It's going to be mayhem. There's going to be rioting, looting, burning down neighborhoods. It's in the best interest for all of us, I think, to have a winner, a clear winner on November 3rd. But given the surge of mail-in ballots, such a clear resolution could end up being wishful thinking, my friends. The way 2020's gone so far seems much more likely our republic is going to be stress-tested in ways that will shake the foundations of our political institutions and challenge the genius of our founding documents to their very core. Let's hear from some of the dumbest analysts on television, courtesy of The View, so they're always good for that. You want the worst view on TV? Turn on The View. Let's hear first from Anna Navarro on the ACB situation, just to give you a sense of what ill-educated left-wingers are saying about this. Play 21.
Of course. Look, I think every judicial nominee should be, unless you're an atheist, you should be asked how and if your beliefs are going to influence your judicial decisions and the way you view issues. Look, most of us on this panel have been raised Catholic. We know that that some of these issues that come in front of the court are actually issues that are taught to us, and it is a fair question to ask because we are a country where there is a separation of church and state. But I also think that Republicans are making an issue out of this to try to make her into a victim of religious persecution that does not exist.
Do they ask it of every nominee the same way they're going to be asking it of Amy Coney Barrett? Also, I think it's fascinating, unless you're an atheist, because then, no problem there with your beliefs. Interesting. You mean that an atheist who would clearly be hostile to believers shouldn't be asked if their hostility to believers would be a problem for them on the, you notice that, right? That slipped in there very easily. Look, a lot of people are raised Catholic who are in no meaningful way whatsoever Catholic by ethics, by doctrine, by practice. And this is, that's just the truth. And I went to Jesuit school, and I call them a bunch of commies. So, and some of them are great. Very good educators. I'm not saying that, but every time I hear some priest who's like, yeah, Biden's going to save us all, and like, you should give your house to illegal immigrants, I go, wait, what? Oh, it's a Jesuit. Okay, cool. Good job. Nice job, Society of Jesus. Joy Behar. Oh, Behar, here she is. My Behar is tough because really to vocalize that is not easy. It's more like right here. There we go. She's like, Moscow Mitch, he's the worst. Play 19.
Moscow Mitch admits that he stacked the court, that he blocked Obama from getting any judges in for 2 years. He stopped the Merrick Garland nomination. Now he's pushing this Comey woman through, or Barrett rather. And so if the Democrats feel that they want to put more justices in, they should do it. But I don't believe, because it's not just about being vindictive. It's about justice. It's about, they're totally justified in doing it because they need more people to get the balance going. But I don't think that Joe Biden should show his hand now. Absolutely not. The base will be disappointed if he says he's not going to do it. And the rest of the country gets upset when he says he's going to do it on their side. So why should play a dead hand, Joe?
Yeah, that's right, Joe. Just don't answer the question. People don't have a right to know. You want to know what idiot Democrats think about the courts and jurisprudence? Joy Behar actually gives you a very good sense of it there. Completely unprincipled blather, but it is about the raw pursuit and exercise of power. So she gets that part right. I got a crash course into home title theft recently, and it's shocking how easy this is. You better pray this crime never happens to you because it can ruin you financially. It goes after your most valuable asset, your home. Here's what happens. The legal titles for all of our homes are online. They're in servers up in the cloud, and a cyber thief can hack into these, find your home's title, forge your signature on a quick claim deed stating you sold your home. Then loans are taken out against your home until all your equity is gone and you're left in debt. The usual identity theft services do not protect you from this. That's why you need the specialists in home title protection at Home Title Lock. Go to HomeTitleLock.com, register your address to see if you're already a victim of this crime and don't even know it. You can also get 30 free days of protection with promo code RADIO. That's HomeTitleLock.com. Register your address. See if you're already a victim of the crime. Don't even know it. But also get 30 free days of protection with promo code RADIO. Biden may be hiding in the basement, but Trump's out there feeling good, cleared for takeoff, and he's all over the place right now, making sure he brings his message to the American people to just tell us what to expect, how these last few weeks are going to look, how the president's doing, and how the campaign's going to really work to shape its message in these final moments. We got Tim Murtaugh with us now. He is the director of communications for the Trump campaign. Tim, great to have you back.
Great to be with you, Buck. Thanks, as always.
Tell us, what are we expecting tonight out on the campaign trail? Where's the president going to be, and what's going to be the primary message?
The president's going to be in Johnstown, Pennsylvania for another rally like he was in Florida last night, and he's going to keep hitting the campaign trail with all the energy and enthusiasm that you might expect from President Trump. Pennsylvania tonight, and then he's on to Des Moines, Iowa on Wednesday, Greenville, North Carolina Thursday. Friday, he's got two events, one in Ocala, Florida, and one in Macon, Georgia. And we anticipate that the president is going to keep up this schedule and only ramp up further. And really, the closing argument boils down to this. President Trump has accomplished more in 47 months than Joe Biden has in 47 years as a failure as a Washington, D.C. politician. That's really the nut of it. And everyone knows that the president built the world's best economy once, and he's already doing it a second time. Joe Biden has been an economic disaster through his almost 5 decades in Washington, and now he wants to raise taxes by $4 trillion and impose the Green New Deal on everybody. And so with the economy being really the central point in this whole campaign, the answer is Donald Trump quite clearly, and it's not even close.
Tim, can you give us a little drill down into Pennsylvania as one of the primary battleground states? And I'm right here in New York. Pennsylvania is next door. Watching this closely, I've got a good friend of mine, Sean Parnell, running for Congress out there. Tell me, how is the Trump campaign looking, and who are the final tranche of voters in Pennsylvania that you're trying to sway over? I mean, just give us some expert analysis of how that essential swing state is looking right now.
Well, we love Sean Parnell, first of all, and he's going to do a great job in Congress when he wins. But in Pennsylvania, generally, it's a lot of things, actually. First, let me just look at the nuts and bolts of it. The ground game that the president has assembled is really second to none in history. It's the largest ground game, 2.4 million volunteers out there knocking on doors, registering voters, and making phone calls. And in Pennsylvania, if you look at registered voters, Democrats versus Republicans, since Election Day 2016, Democrats always have a voter edge, but that gap has narrowed by 200,000 voters. And that's because of the president's ground game registering Republican voters. So we're 200,000 voters better than we were on Election Day 2016. And if you remember, the president won Pennsylvania by about 44,000 votes. And so we've added 200,000 on top of that number. We feel very good about Pennsylvania. Economically, the issues are going to be very important in Pennsylvania. The president built the best economy that Pennsylvania has ever seen, and he's doing it a second time. Joe Biden voted for NAFTA. That was a job killer in Pennsylvania. He argued for most favored nation status and helped get China into the World Trade Organization. That cost the United States 60,000 factories and 3.5 million jobs. And that is very, very important for a state with a lot of working people like Pennsylvania. And Joe Biden, he may have the support of union executives, the presidents of unions, but President Trump is going to get the union households, the actual union workers. And it's because of a number of things. First, the president's real improvement, vastly improving America's standing in our trade deals, getting rid of NAFTA and replacing it with USMCA. But also the president's clear championing of American energy industries, and in particular in Pennsylvania, fracking, the natural gas industry, which employs 600,000 Pennsylvanians. Joe Biden, as you know, Buck, has declared war on fossil fuels, and he's teamed up with AOC. He's got his own version of the Green New Deal, and that calls for the end of fossil fuels. And when he's on the campaign trail talking to environmental activists, Joe Biden tells them we're going to end fracking, going to ban fracking. Of course, when he's in Pennsylvania, he tries to hide that, but the truth is Joe Biden's agenda would kill 600,000 jobs in the fracking industry in Pennsylvania. Those are the key issues. The president has made great inroads in the Latino community and in the black community because of pre-pandemic, unprecedented low, all-time low unemployment in the black community. The economic message cuts across all demographics, and that's how the president is going to win Pennsylvania a second time.
We're speaking to Tim Murtaugh, Director of Communications for the Trump campaign. Tim, talk to me about where we stand here with the controversies, the back and forth over mail-in balloting, universal mail-in balloting. New Jersey, California are going to be doing this. A bunch of other states have been doing it for years. Where does that issue stand right now, and how much of a concern is it that there could be both fraud and also just ineptitude in terms of being able to execute on this?
Well, we have serious concerns about it because you see Democrats have been in court in 18 states trying to loosen campaign integrity and loosen the protections against having people have their votes stolen by others committing fraud in elections. When you have Democrat governors and legislatures trying to institute, and they started doing this only 3 months away from Election Day, universal mail-in voting, which is sending a ballot, a live ballot, to every registered voter, whether they asked for one or not. That's not the same thing as traditional absentee by mail voting like they do in Florida and so many other states where people actually request a ballot, and so you know it's an actual voter who wants that ballot. When you mail them out to every registered voter, you know that these voter rolls are notoriously bad. The addresses are wrong. People have moved. In many cases, people have actually died, and still the ballot gets mailed out. And so you see all these things, and it was never the Postal Service. That was never the issue. That was a complete red herring that the Democrats dreamed up to make people think that there was a war on the post office. No, the issue is you don't know who's going to get their hands on these ballots when they send them out to every registered voter. And secondly, when they get mailed back in, these are local elections offices who have never had to deal with this kind of volume. They're going to be overwhelmed, and there is so much opportunity for fraud. Look what happened in Paterson, New Jersey, where they had their municipal elections this May, where it was the first time that they had used universal mail-in voting, and 20% of the ballots that came in were deemed fraudulent, and a judge actually ordered that election to be done over. In New York City, those congressional races that took 6 months to declare a winner because of the flood of mail-in ballots that they weren't expecting, they were only talking about 20,000 ballots. And here in some states, we're going to be talking about millions. And so when you loosen the restrictions, and Democrats are trying to actually extend Election Day, move Election Day back a week effectively, giving them a week to count the absentee ballots, and remember what happens when these ballots get mailed out. They get sent out in pre-postage paid envelopes. And when they get mailed back in, they don't get postmarked, so they are not date stamped at all. There's no way to tell when those ballots were mailed. So if you push it back a week, you got a situation where in so many states, Democrats could wake up on the morning after Election Day, see that Donald Trump won the state by, say, 10,000 votes, and now they've got 7 whole days to go find 10,001 votes to try to put Joe Biden over the top. It absolutely paves the way and practically invites cheating and fraud. That's what we're concerned about, and so that's why we've been in court fighting against the Democrats who are in there trying to loosen these regulations and loosen the protections, and we'll be ready on Election Day and beyond to fight off whatever chicanery the Democrats have in store.
That's what I was going to ask you about next, Tim, so it's a perfect transition. What happens if, the campaign, the Trump campaign, the results come in, and you all declare, okay, God willing, that the president is going to be the president for 4 more years, and the Democrats refuse to have that concession call from Joe Biden and say, nope, we don't know we don't know how many mail-in ballots are out there, so we all have to sit.
Yeah, I mean, we're ready for that to happen. You see notable Democrats like Hillary Clinton even telling Joe Biden that he should not concede under any circumstances. So we're absolutely ready for that eventuality that Biden won't concede. And this will be a big court fight and going down, sort of reminiscent of 2000 and Bush and Gore. And we have been for a long time, well more than a year, putting together the team that's going to be doing this. Of course, we'll have poll watchers in the voting places, which is a common practice for both sides, making sure that the rules are being followed when people are actually casting their votes. But for the days after Election Day, we're going to have thousands upon thousands of volunteer attorneys helping us do this. And we know that we're going to have to be in court battling this because the Democrats are going to make it so, and we have to be ready to answer them. We're also going to be challenging a lot of the crazy things that the Democrats are going to want to be doing after Election Day, and we'll be anticipating a lot of their crazy maneuvers and be ready to try to stop them from doing it, because we know there is nothing that Democrats like to do in the world more than trying to change the rules of the game while the game is in progress or even after the game is supposed to be over. And we know that, and we will have thousands upon thousands of lawyers and other volunteers ready to go. It's all being run out of the campaign and also at the RNC. And I think you and your listeners should rest assured that there is no dirty trick that we have not anticipated from the Democrats, and we will be ready.
Tim Murtaugh, Director of Communications for Donald Trump's campaign, folks. Tim, great stuff. Good luck. Come back, talk to us soon.
Now they say I'm immune. I feel so powerful. I'll walk into that audience. I'll walk in there. I'll kiss everyone in that audience. I'll kiss the guys and the beautiful women and everybody. I'll just give you a big fat kiss.
That was a fun moment from Trump last night at his rally in Florida, down in Sanford, Florida, near Orlando. And the president is no longer contagious, folks. There's no scientific basis between now and the election, probably until deep into next year at a minimum, February, March. There's no scientific basis whatsoever for the president of the United States to have to wear a mask between now and the election. But notice how you will see mask shaming anyway, because it's not about disease. It's about the example. President has antibodies. He's done. Negative test. No reason to believe he can still be infected or infect anyone else. That is what the science tells us. But do you think that they're going to let that go? Do you think that that will be acceptable if the president decides that he's going to just enjoy the right to breathe free, fresh air without, I can tell you, I was working out yesterday because I'm, trying to deal with the COVID-19. And I was working out yesterday and I was in a gym. There were a few other people in the gym and I had to sneeze. And I knew that if I pulled my mask off and sneezed, it would be like I've unleashed a bioweapon as far as these people are concerned. They would lose their minds because my building is full of libs. And I sneezed into my mask and put my hand over the mask like a good little COVID defender. And it was disgusting in there. I mean, it was like the swampiest swamp creature imaginable. It was gross. What else am I supposed to do, though? And now I'm sitting there. I got like a wet mask with all kinds of, I'm not even going to describe it. Some of you might be eating lunch, but I'm just saying it's gross. But this is what I'm supposed to do now so that people aren't scared. Idiotic, but that's what happens. I'm also hoping that at least maybe using a mask while you work out is almost like swinging a baseball bat with Bruce and Mark. They call it a donut, right?
Yes, the weight's on it.
Yeah, the weight on it, donut. Yeah, swinging a bat with a donut so that if I work out with a mask on for 4 or 5 months, at least it'll feel, my lungs and everything will feel easier when I finally, hopefully one day, I'm able to just work out like a normal person without a mask on. Wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah, Trump is now immune. And he can go out there. Look at this. Almost like he made a calculated decision, took a risk, it paid off, and now he can be out there campaigning and not have to worry at all. Oh, gosh. You mean that people can live their lives that way? Yes, they can. They usually do until now. But then there's the Fauci. The Fauci still thinks the president should wear a mask. Still thinks he should wear a mask. That's what the Fauci's there for. Wear a mask, social distance, the mitigation, the measures. Play 27.
I want to talk about this idea of once you're past that 10-day period of showing symptoms, you're likely not contagious anymore. Given that there's so much we still don't know about this virus, would it not be better for those who have been infected? I'm thinking right now specifically of Senator Mike Lee of Utah, who was maskless at the Supreme Court confirmation hearing today. He said that he produced a letter showing that he's outside the 10 days and the doctor gave him the all clear. But I have to say, I don't know that I would feel comfortable sitting next to him so soon. Right. Wouldn't it, in the name of being better to be safe than sorry, wouldn't it be better for President Trump, Senator Lee to wear masks and limit their exposure to others, even if they're past the 10 days?
Yeah, as the better part of caution, I think that would be appropriate to do that. I certainly think from a practical standpoint, I probably would do that myself just to be extra careful.
That's right. Our chief disease expert, according to the federal government bureaucracy, is telling you that even when you have the most on-the-spot, high-level medical care in the world that's told you that you are negative, you've tested negative multiple times, We know that people have antibodies afterwards for at least a few months, if not longer, that you should still wear a mask just to be on the safe side. Why not 3 masks? I mean, 2 sounds good, but why not 3? Why not mask and goggles? Why not wear a mask when you go to sleep? What if a fireman has to come into your home because there's a fire in the middle of the night and you're breathing and the fireman comes to save you and now you've breathed your COVID on him, so you got to wear it when you're sleeping. Don't you see? This is the society that they're creating for us. This is the idiocy that they're... Remember, if people want to be as cautious with themselves, that's fine. They're making you do it. They're making me do it. They're making everyone live based on their anxiety and also their political signaling. And then there's, of course, Fauci saying, I'm not political. I'm not a political guy at all. My wife voted for Hillary, and I love Hillary, and wrote her an email saying I love her and I'm proud of her after the Benghazi hearings, which were highly partisan, but play 25.
In hindsight, doctor, have you put up with too much?
Well, I don't know what you mean by put up with too much. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of things that are going on that you would prefer did not happen, like the ad, which put me in a political context, which I spent my entire career staying out of political context. That's not helpful. But I'm certainly not going to give up. This is too important a problem. I mean, I've devoted my entire professional life to fighting infectious diseases. This is an outbreak of historic proportions, the likes of which we have not seen in 102 years. There's no chance that I'm going to give up on this and walk away from it no matter what happens.
Not political, he says, though. Not political. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is able to cite Fauci all the time, and Fauci has no problem with it. Biden can cite how he listened to Fauci, and Fauci doesn't say, keep me out of it. But Trump uses him in a campaign commercial. Big problem.